learn more about openIMIS and about the community which surrounds it. So I'm very, very happy that for this opportunity to share some ideas on actuarial analysis in the context of health policy and health insurance software. I will not waste time on introducing myself. I have practical experience in project in German health insurances. I have a background on development cooperation, especially in Asia, which is already, it feels like a long time ago. And now I'm working most of the time as professor for health and social sector management, and I have my own company where we actually work on digital medical devices, which will not be relevant for today's topic, but maybe at some other time. Now, what I want to do with you in the next roughly 10 minutes, that's what we agreed on time space. What do we actually mean by actuarial analysis? Because you can use it in different ways, and we have to understand what we mean in our context, which is, well, let's call it social health insurance. So we have to get a clear understanding. Then on the second point, health policy, that's what we do the actuarial analysis for. We do it to support health policy making. But we cannot do it, and that's the third point, without health insurance IT, because that's where the data comes from. And then the last, well, it is actually not that easy to do this, to get the health insurance IT to generate the data which we're talking about. So this is supposed to be the general setting then, which we then take further and make it more specific in the contributions from Puro and Patima, which I'm very much looking forward to. So now, I called this the narrow definition of actuarial analysis. When I talk to my students, I always tell them in the German health insurances, the statutory health insurances, they don't have actuarial experts because they normally don't need them. You find them in private health insurance, and also in private life and accident insurances. That's where it actually comes from, because the main purpose of actuarial analysis, you see here, reserves. So these kinds of insurances, they build large reserves, which they invest in financial markets to build a stock of capital, which they use to fund the services, or when they have to pay out money to the insurers. That is the model of also of private health insurance, also of a private pension insurance. So you need statistical analysis and risk assessment for the premium calculation and for the setting of the reserves. So this is where it comes from, calculations over a very, very long time frame. So it's mathematics, statistics. Now, this is the narrow definition of actuarial analysis. Now, since here we're normally dealing when in our context with social health insurance, with statutory health insurance, this does not fully apply. So I'm suggesting a broader definition of actuarial analysis, namely calculating and assessing the financial implications of different policy options. You all know we are moving large amounts, normally millions, sometimes billions of euros, dollars, whatever your currency, in health insurances, in social health insurances. So the financial impact, the financial implications of a change in the benefit package, or of changing the insured population, or in changing a premium, the financial implications are huge. So assessing these implications in advance before making the decisions is very, very important. And I think the reason why, for example, in the context of Nepal, we discussed this, is that in a health insurance system which is in the process of developing, where there's still many changes, this is even more relevant. If you look at the German system, the health insurance system in Germany is quite stable, you could say. So changes in the benefit package in insured populations are not so big. So we only discuss small margins. But if you take full new population groups, of course, this becomes much more critical. So that's why when we have a health insurance which is maturing, which is building up, actuarial analysis is very important, just to make sure that you don't make a decision which costs maybe a huge amount of money, which you have not foreseen. So we're talking about informed decision making. So this is the health policymakers, whoever it is, the ministry, the parliament, and here you have the health insurance. Now, I assume that health policy options will actually be discussed between the two, because the health insurance people are the specialists on the need for changes. But it is sometimes also the policymakers from their talks, from their constituents, who have ideas. So this is hopefully a dialogue. But then the health policymakers, they are the ones at the end who make the decisions. It's, in my view, it's not the health insurance which makes the decisions on their own, but it's policy decisions. And these hopefully should be based on data. And this data will come from the health insurance. And this is what we need the actuarial analysis for. Somebody who actually knows what is in the data and how to get the data from the health insurance IT systems. We will come to that in a second. Now, the health policymakers, I assume, will use other data as well. So, for example, data from the Ministry of Finance. Maybe there is financial contribution from tax monies going into the health insurance. So there will additional information from this side. You can also use national statistics data, maybe life expectancy, development of the economy. You can maybe development of the population statistics. All this data will also feed into the health policy making, but this would not come from the health insurance. So if we're talking about actuarial analysis, we're specifically talking about the data which would come from the health insurance. Now, it doesn't mean that the actuarials, they couldn't use this data, but I would not expect them to have the direct access to that. So providing data to the health policymakers in a form which supports decision making. That's what I call actuarial analysis in the context of a social or statutory health insurance. Now, the problem is here, the data comes from the health insurance. And now we're zooming in on that. Sorry, wrong direction here. The health insurance has a software, openIMIS. And this software is primarily designed, and that's the usual way to manage the operations of the health insurance. Insurance data, insuree data, contributions, collection, claims management, management of providers, all the stuff which you know. So this is business processes are supported by the health insurance IT, by, for example, openIMIS. Same in a German system or anywhere around the world. So here we recreate real-world data, but not so. And the data is sort of a byproduct of the business processes. The data is not collected to make actuarial analysis, but the data is collected by managing insurees or collecting contributions. So the real world data and the data needed for actuarial analysis are not the same. There's no one-on-one match. This data needed for actuarial analysis, I go back, is the one which comes from the discussion. So maybe these guys here, the people who discuss here, have questions which are not reflected in this data. So we see it many times that you come to the point where you say, okay, we cannot answer that data, but maybe we want to answer it in the future, so we make some changes in the IT system. And these changes would be made not to have better business processes, but actually to improve the quality or the availability of data. And then the process starts again. Of course, we still use the software for the operations of the health insurance, but have real world data, which is a little bit better targeted also to the needs of actuarial analysis. And this is actually a cycle. This is not one step, but there will always be new questions. So this is defining what is needed is a continuous process. This will still be the priority, because the priority is the business processes. Now, I'm actually already at my last slide. The two here I already mentioned. So the data comes from the health insurance processes, but the IT system is designed for the operation of the health insurance and not for the actuarial analysis. But still, this is where the data comes from, the data which we want to use for the actuarial analysis. Now, what we need to manage is, here I called it a link. And the actuarial analysis is this link. You could think of the person doing it as somebody who supports the policymakers in asking the right questions. What should we analyze? What are the questions we should ask in terms of data to make informed decisions? But we also need the health insurance operations. So the people who actually who are responsible for managing the claims, for managing the insurees. I want to give you, because even if you know the IT system, sometimes the people who use an IT system use it a little bit differently from how you would expect it. I want to give you one real life example, which I had in one health insurance, and this would be not quite actuarial analysis, because the problem was not financial, but the question was, how long does a specific business process take? And it was a digital process within the health insurance, from the arrival of a document to the finish of the business process. And there were different data in the health insurance system which had something to do with start of the process, but nobody had really considered which one is the one which is actually the start. What do we mean by start of the business process? So you cannot just assume that by the heading of a field in the data will be the content will actually be what you expect. You have to speak with the people who do it to interpret in the right way, and then you have to have the people who know the actual database, how to extract the data from that from your source. And so holding this together, so the actuarial analysis, the person should have a good understanding of the business processes in the health insurance, and should have a decent understanding of the health insurance software, so that otherwise you have the risk of actually drawing the wrong conclusions. And that's why this function is very important, and also very very challenging. It is not easy to fulfill this role, but it's something which you don't have to do in one step, but you can build the expertise over time. So this was the very, very brief summary of actuarial analysis. please feel free to get in touch. This is where you find me by email. This is my LinkedIn link.